You're listening to The Bloodshed Baddies.
Hi, I'm Lex,
And I'm Sam.
and we are the Bloodshed Baddies.
What up, baddies? Thank you so much for tuning back in and giving us another listen. We just want to say that thank you so much to everyone who reached out to us, family and friends. You've been so incredible for all the love and support. It's been pretty awesome. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been great.
Very exciting. I know I'm excited. The first podcast, like out of the way, the jitters are gone, and now I get to sit back, relax, and listen to you do it. How are you feeling?
I'm very excited about my case today.
Yay, yay, yay. Before we get started, besides like putting a podcast out into the world, what's new with you?
Not much. Yesterday, Dustin's my boyfriend, we watched the original Friday the 13th movie because he's
What
never seen it before.
was his thoughts?
He liked it. Yeah. No spoilers because it's from the 1980s. So if you haven't seen it, sorry about it. But I think he was real surprised that Jason and his hockey mask do not make an appearance in the first movie.
It's been so long. I don't even know if I've ever seen it, but that would surprise me as well. Nothing too much is new with me besides obviously like work and whatevs. But on Thursday for us, and then by the time this podcast comes out, it will be Halloween. And for those of you who do not,
Woo!
there we go. For those of you who do not know Lex, Halloween is her Christmas. It's her jam. So I'm curious, what are your plans? What are you being for Halloween?
So we actually went to a 90s cover band in Nashville. They're called My So-Called Band. Look them up. They're amazing. So we went
Ooh,
there on Saturday and Dustin was a skater boy and
oh
I
my God,
was
so cute.
a ballerina because he was a skater boy. She said, "See you later, boy."
He wasn't good enough for her.
Exactly. So for Halloween, though, we are going to go trick or treating with his daughters, which I'm very excited because I haven't been trick or treating in a long time. Sam, how long did you trick or treat for? What age were you when you stopped trick or
Oh,
treating?
I want to say it was high school. I remember like going around the neighborhood and just kind of messing around at that point, but getting some candy, probably sophomore, junior year, maybe.
I trick or treated my freshman year of college, and that was my last year I trick or treated. I love
Nerd
trick or treating.
alert. Going back to your costume, first off, super cute. Pink is your color. And second off, cutest outfit ever. You always have very good creative ideas. For me, this year, we're just passing out candy in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is doing something different where we're all gonna like sit together, which makes me a little bit nervous, but maybe I'll meet friends. My husband, Brandon, and I, we're at the stage in our life where we do our costumes based on our dog's costume. And
Oh, so what are you guys being this year?
Bubba is going to be a hot dog.
Oh no, what are you guys gonna be?
We're going low key because we're passing out candy. We got Detroit National Coney Island shirts, and we're gonna wear those.
That's
And as
very
a hot
cute.
dog. Thank you.
That's
And then my
very cute.
last question, one more for you, since again it's your Christmas. What is your favorite Halloween costume ever?
Ever that I've ever done?
Ever.
Um, that's a hard one.
I can tell you mine because I thought of this, obviously, before I
Okay,
asked
yeah.
you.
Tell
And
me
I
yours
thought about
first.
this for a long time. But I think the best costume I ever had was Bloody Scream. Do
Oh
you remember Bloody
yeah,
Scream?
I do remember Bloody Scream. I forgot you were Bloody Scream. And Jamie, our neighbor that we grew up with, who
My best
basically
friend.
was like a sister, she was so scared of it, she made you take it off while we were trick or
Yes.
treating.
And I had to take it off. In this costume, what a weirdo I was. It was the Scream mask, but I had a pump in my hand that I could pump and then blood would come down on the face. How old was I? Do you remember?
You had to be like 10 or 11.
Okay, it's not too bad. Doesn't make me too
Wait,
creepy.
maybe no, probably younger. Maybe like 8 or 9.
I was just a weird child.
You were a weird child.
All right, your
I
turn.
think my favorite was one year my ex and I were Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy,
Oh, I
and
remember.
that was a really good one. And our costumes were really good.
Iconic. Absolutely
Yeah.
iconic.
Yes, it was very fun. Also, If you're listening and you notice I sound kind of funny or sniffly, I do have a stuffy nose today. But sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with it because I
It's
do.
cute. It's cute. All right. I'm excited, Lex.
Okay, are you ready to dive in?
I'm so ready.
Okay, so before we start, I do want to like put out a warning. This case is still unsolved till this day,
Ugh.
and nobody knows what actually happened. There's a lot of theories out there. Honestly, I can't choose a way that I lean on it.
Mm,
There's maybe one that makes more sense to me than the others, but I'm still not convinced. So I'm excited to see how you feel. Today, I am talking about the disappearance of Maura Murray.
Ooh, first off, I just want to preface myself. I hate an unsolved case. There's so many unanswered questions, but I'm really excited to hear yours.
Have you ever heard of Maura
I
and her
know I
case?
have like on a podcast or something, but I have no knowledge of anything about it besides the name. Sounds familiar to me.
Awesome. Okay. So I first learned about the Maura Murray case several years ago from an episode of one of mine and Sam's favorite true crime podcasts, True Crime Garage.
Oh, love it.
And I became literally obsessed with this case. I listened to the podcast Missing Maura Murray and also read the book True Crime Addict. However, for today's episode, I got most of my information from some websites that'll be linked in the show notes. And then this weekend, I also found a way to watch the Oxygen series, The Disappearance of Maura Murray. So
Mm,
I binge watched it on Sunday and kind of used it to fill any gaps I had in the research. Also, there's like so much information out there, but it seems like there's more theories than facts out there. So I'm going to
challenging.
do the best to get all the facts out there, but we are going to be heavy on theories today.
I love it. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, so let's start by getting into who Maura Murray was. Maura was born on May 4th, 1982, to Fred and Lori. She had four siblings. She had an older brother, Fred, two older sisters, Kathleen and Julie, and then a younger brother, Curtis. When she was 6 years old, her parents went through a divorce. Maura grew up an athlete. She participated in like basically every sport, but like her main sports were basketball and track. She was also a really, really good student in high school. She was in the National Honor Society. So she just had like a lot going for her.
Already impressive.
When it was time for her to go to college, she actually went to West Point, where her older sister Julie attended. So West Point is like a military school. I don't know much about it except for that it is a military school.
Was military her goal? Do you know?
Unsure. I think a lot of it, she was really close with her sister Julie. So I think a lot of it was being able to go where she went. And I think when Maura was a freshman, she was a senior, or it might have been she was a junior when Maura was a freshman, but they were pretty close in age. In her second year at West Point, though, she transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, aka UMass, which I'm going to call it UMass from now on because University of Massachusetts Amherst. I can't even say it. I just messed it up. University of Massachusetts Amherst is a mouthful. So she went there and she majored in nursing. And this is where the story gets kind of messy. There's a website that her family has created to put out information. And on their website, they report, quote, it was because the military wasn't for her. However, there are reports that she got kicked out for stealing makeup from the campus store.
You think that you would get kicked out for that?
Well, she did steal them from the campus store at Fort Knox.
Oh, so like, yeah, serious. That could be okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I think basically what is like floating around there again, it's so hard to find like the actual straight facts on this case, is that she possibly like had to go to like a little like student court for it. And instead of like pressing charges, they allowed her to just withdraw from college.
And regardless, if she did get kicked out, that's sad. But she's going to be a nurse, which is another admirable career. Nurses rock. Thank you, nurses out there. Like, she seems
Yes.
incredible. Stealing makeup. Everyone does stupid things when they're little.
So she also met a man at West Point. His name was
Ooh.
Bill Rausch. I think that's how you say his last name. He was a lieutenant in the Army. By the time that Maura was at UMass, he was stationed in Oklahoma.
Mm.
Her sister Julie did report that while Maura was at UMass, she had heard rumors from some of the girls on her sports teams that Bill was cheating on Maura.
Jerk.
Yeah. So Maura gets to UMass and Her time at UMass was not a walk in the park at all. In November of 2003, she was arrested for stealing credit cards.
Ooh, she has a quick hand. She likes to steal.
So she used the credit cards to purchase food like pizza, and she admitted to finding the numbers on discarded receipts.
Mm.
So she would go find a receipt in the trash, grab the credit card number off of it, and use it to order food to her dorm.
Is the whole credit card number on a receipt?
I'm unsure.
I gotta
This
start
was
ripping those
back in
receipts.
this was back in 2003, so I don't know
Could be different.
if like we have been like, oh, you can do that. Or I'm not sure. But she did admit to it. She was sentenced to 3 months probation with the promise that if she had good behavior for 3 months, the charges would be dropped completely.
Good for her.
So we are going to jump ahead 3 months. So we're almost at the end of her probationary period. And this is when things start to get weird. I will also say that, again, the facts of this time period are very foggy and reported very differently. So, a couple
Okay.
days before her appearance on February 5th, 2004, Maura was working at her job at campus security. They didn't explain much about it, but it kind of makes me think it was like when you worked the desk at your dorm and had to
Oh,
like
very.
check people's IDs and stuff. I think that's kind of the vibe that it was. So she got a phone call from her sister Kathleen around 10:30 p.m. Apparently around that time, Kathleen was struggling with addiction and was fighting
Oh.
a lot with her fiance. So this is where I get confused, and I looked this up and just every source says it different. Some sources make it seem that right after this phone call, Maura was really upset. Other sources say that it was closer to 1 o'clock a.m. that she got really upset. Either way, at some point this night after the phone call, she was inconsolable. Her
Which makes
supervisor
sense.
her supervisor asked her what was wrong, and all she could say was my sister, and she had to be escorted back to her room.
Mm.
Kathleen later came out and said that Maura did not seem upset on the phone call at all. However, around the same time, she admits that she got out of rehab and her fiance immediately took her to a liquor store.
Oh my. And also, I want to say one thing. She could be putting on a brave face in front of her sister and then hanging up and getting upset.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And then she also relapsed around this time, and Maura was aware of that situation. So there was a lot of reason for Maura to be upset that night. So 2 days later, on February 7th, her dad, Fred, came up to Amherst. They went car shopping and he took her out to dinner that night. This part makes me a little suspicious. Throughout the day, they stopped at 8 different ATMs to pull out a total of $4,000.
With her dad?
Yeah, which they were car shopping.
Okay.
However, they never bought a car that day.
That's a little sus.
So, like, where that money at? I don't know.
Does he ever say?
No, we'll get into it. It's almost a aura of like you can't trust anything anybody says in this case, which I think is why it's so confusing. But since they didn't buy her a car, that evening he lent her his car so she could go to a party. Her friends at the party have reported afterwards that she drank quite a bit at that party, and they encouraged her to just stay and sleep in her dorm room. She did not listen, and she drove her dad's car back to his hotel.
Oh, why?
She crashed, I don't know. She crashed the car into a guardrail and damaged the car enough that she needed to call a tow truck driver.
Oh, wow.
The tow truck driver dropped her back off at her dad's hotel. The reason this could be significant is she was driving under the influence. And remember, she was only a couple weeks away from that probationary period ending.
I
So
forgot
this
about
could
that.
really mess up her probation. So apparently Fred left the next day, and Maura called an owner of a condominium in Bartlett, New Hampshire, where her family had stayed before. However, she didn't end up booking the room. She also called a hotel in Vermont, but again, she did not book the room. Her search history also showed that she looked up directions to Burlington, Vermont.
So she's planning on, it appears she's planning on a trip to go somewhere.
Yes, most likely New Hampshire or Vermont, which are the states like right north of Massachusetts. Okay, so then the morning of February 9th, the next day, Maura sent an email to all her professors that there was a death in the family and she would be out for the next week. This was odd because there was not a death in her family.
So going back to the probation thing that you brought back up, do we feel like maybe she was running away so she didn't get in trouble for a little bit?
We will definitely get into the theories at this. A lot of Maura's family and friends say that they felt she just needed to take a break from everything.
Which is fair. You know, we all need little vacay breaks sometimes.
Yeah. So after she sent that email, she also emailed her boyfriend, Bill Roush. It said, I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promise to call today, though. Love you, Maura.
Okay. So she's promising to call.
At 3:15 p.m., she stopped at an ATM and she withdrew $280, which was basically all the money she had in the ATM or in the bank. She then stopped at a liquor store and bought $40 worth of alcohol, which included Bailey's, Kahlua, boxed wine, and a 6-pack of Seagrams.
What a college haul. Ugh.
I literally said, which to me seems like the weirdest combination and also the most college girl collection of alcohol ever. And then at 4:37 p.m., she called her own voicemail, which may sound weird, but I remember back in the day when you would like call your own voicemail to get your voicemails. It wasn't just like easy peasy on your phone. Now I can read my voicemails. But back in the early 2000s, you had to call your voicemail.
Honestly, I forgot. You're right.
So then she left the area shortly after that voice call to her own voicemail. At 7:27 p.m., Faith Westman called the police to report there had been an accident near her house. A car had crashed on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. The car belonged to Maura Murray.
She crashed again.
Yes. So she also reported on the phone that she saw someone smoking a cigarette by the car. This becomes kind of important later, but not really in my opinion, but other people have different opinions. So then a bus driver named Butch Atwood was driving by around the same time, like minutes after this call to 911. And he stopped to talk to Maura. He offered to help her and to call the police. She told him she already called AAA. Butch knew there was not good cell service out there and that she was probably lying.
I assume she's lying because, again, like you said, her probation's coming up. So she's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. And what else can Butch do at that point?
Yeah, I also know, like, as a woman, if a strange man in a school bus approached me on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, I would probably lie too.
How do you run away?
Yeah. So it was later confirmed that she did lie and she'd never called AAA. So he got back in his bus and drove to his house, which was 100 yards away, and called the police. So at 7:42, he called the police. Remember, the first call came in at 7:27. This is at 7:42. He reported that the airbags had deployed and the woman appeared shaken up but not injured.
Okay.
So first call at 7:27, second call at 7:42. At 7:46, a police officer arrives and Maura is nowhere to be seen.
What is that, like 19, 20 minutes? I'm bad at math.
No. I mean, from the very first phone call,
Yeah.
it's 19 minutes.
So
from the time Butch called, it's 5 minutes. And
5 minutes.
Butch only lived 100 yards away.
Can I insert a thought? But I don't want to like ruin the theories. I wonder if she knew, oh God, this guy's going to call the police and was like, I need to flee.
Mm-hmm. The time that probably from that Butch saw her last to the time that the police got there was no more than 7 minutes. And there was not a trace of her. The police officer reported that the car was locked. There was a box of red wine with wine stains in the back seat. He also found a rag in her tailpipe. Later, her parents have said that they told her to do this so she wasn't ticketed for excess smoke.
It sounds to me like she's trying to burn the car on fire.
It just seems weird to me. I tried to Google it. Google says it's mostly a bad idea, but like, we'll get into it. But yeah, I think this is strange. I don't know that it's necessarily related, but I think it's strange.
Also, the red wine stains, that means she probably was drinking and driving?
It could mean that, or it could mean that when she crashed the car. I mean, she crashed it hard enough that the airbags went off. So it could have just opened up. So other items in the car included a Coke bottle that smelled of alcohol, printed MapQuest directions to Burlington, Vermont. Remember the time of printed MapQuest directions?
Oh my God, what a time.
teeth whitener, birth control, and textbooks. They also found multiple packs of sleeping pills, and one of the packs was empty.
Oh no.
And then some sources report that the book Not Without Peril was found in her car. And it's a book about death and survival stories in the White Mountains, which she was in the White Mountains. However, only some sources report that, so I don't know how true that is.
If that's true, that's, I think, kind of cuckoo, but go ahead.
Police also reported that her cell phone and her backpack were missing. They said, quote, evidence at the scene indicated that the vehicle had been eastbound and had gone off the roadway, struck some trees, spun around, and came to a rest facing the wrong way in the eastbound lane. The police
Ooh,
saw no signs of foul play, and it was snowing. So there was snow on the ground, and there was no footprints leading into the woods.
that was what I was going to say. So where the heck is she in 5 minutes if there's no footprints?
It's strange because it's almost as if she vanished out of thin air.
There would have to be footprints. Even if it was actively snowing, with 5 minutes, you would see something, I would imagine.
So the police that night, it was dark and later, so they only searched like 100-yard area around the crash site. A lot of people criticized the police, and I'm not saying the police did everything perfectly, but also at this time, they don't know that Maura's missing.
Yes.
Adults are allowed to leave their car on the side of the road when they get in an accident and go
And they
somewhere
don't know
else.
it's a young girl on her own either. It's a car. That's all they know.
Yes. Yes. I don't 100% blame them for not treating this like an emergency right away. So now we're going to get into the investigation. And this is where things get weirder and weirder somehow. The police did bring in, like the next couple days, search dogs. And the dogs tracked her scent a couple feet down the road and then suddenly stopped.
Come on.
So the most likely explanation that the police dog handlers say is that she got into a car. So she walked a couple feet away from her car, got into a car, and that's why they lost her scent.
And no footprints. That makes sense.
They never traced her into the woods. They also checked 10 miles of the road for footprints because the next few days it didn't snow anymore. So it was the same dusting of snow that was there when Maura left. So they checked 10 miles of road for footprints and no footprints were ever found.
That's so weird.
They also brought cadaver dogs in to search the area in the woods. So cadaver dogs are the ones who look for dead bodies. They don't look for living people. They never hit on anything. The police reported 2 days after the crash that she was possibly suicidal.
What evidence is there?
I think the sleeping pills and the alcohol were
And she was
probably-
upset.
Yeah, probably what they were looking at. Her dad said, no way, in quotes. She was in good spirits and had no worries or reason to run away from her life. Except, I don't know, maybe that she was arrested for credit card fraud, crashed your car, was upset about her sister. Life was not easy for Maura at this time.
Yeah, that's what I don't agree with Dad.
Search of her apartment revealed that all of her stuff was packed up, and there was a printout of an email with her boyfriend that was detailing all of the issues in their relationship on top of the boxes.
Oh, that doesn't look very good.
No. However, it was the beginning of the semester. So
Ah.
police don't know, did she pack up everything before she left to go on this trip and put this email on top? Or had she never finished unpacking her stuff from the beginning of the semester?
Weird that the email is on top, though.
I agree. A few months later, someone reported that on the night Maura went missing, they saw a young person moving eastbound a few miles from the accident between 8 and 8:30 p.m. They said they reported it so late because they were unsure of the date. This kind of ends up being random and not really talked about anymore, but I just thought I'd put it in there as it was something that happened.
And with the no footprints, I don't know if it is the right date, to be honest.
Probably not. Nothing ever comes from it, and I don't think anything ever will. But yeah, especially with the cadaver or the not cadaver dogs, the regular ones
Yeah.
hitting on her scent stopping, she most likely did not walk very far down that road. Now, this part is just interesting. So something came out a little bit after about the night that Maura left her job when she got the upsetting phone call.
Okay.
Some reports say it happened before she went into work. Some reports say it happened on her way home from work around that time. But she's never been connected to this, but there was a hit and run on campus. Petrit Vasi was hit by a car and knocked unconscious.
Is this the same night that she drove home?
No, this is the night that she was very upset and had to leave work early.
Oh, boy.
He regained consciousness months later, but had no memory of what happened. However, the person driving the car probably would have thought that he died because he was unconscious, found unconscious at the scene.
So my initial thought could be a definite weird coincidence.
So there's the theory that Maura was the driver. It's never been connected. However, if you remember from the timeline, the next day is when her dad came up to take her car shopping.
Oh my God. I forgot about that. That doesn't look good.
No. But again, there's never been anything to connect Maura to this hit and run. It's just a weird coincidence.
Weird, especially with that. I don't like.
The police also searched her computer and found out she researched for the effects of alcohol on an unborn baby.
The plot thickens. Is she pregnant?
So in an interview with a classmate, she was in nursing school and they were taking a maternity class that semester. Okay. So this means it would be perfectly normal to be searching this for her homework.
Oh my God, you pulled a fast one on me.
So Maura's parents have always been very critical of the police investigation. They believe the police botched the case. Her sister Julie reports that the police have never reached out to her for an interview.
I don't know. If that's true, that's bad on the police.
However, Fred is also often criticized for his participation in the investigation or lack thereof. He didn't sit down for an interview with police for 5.5 years.
The dad?
Yeah. So it's just weird all around. Like I said, I feel like I don't trust any one singular source in this case. I think they all have reasons to lie, and they all do.
That's why you're right that it's unsolved, I bet.
And then I put this in here, and I probably should have put it more up. So now it's just a random bit of information because I forgot to include it. The Oxygen documentary that I watched, they took the same route as Maura from the campus, stopped at the ATM, did her whole shebang, and it took them 1 hour less than it took Maura. So what did she do at this hour?
She was chatty or doing something, taking a poo-poo. I don't know.
An hour-long poo-poo. So that is basically the facts that we have surrounding this case.
Oh my.
Are you ready to get into theories? Because there's a lot.
I 100% am, because I'm very intrigued right now.
The first theory is the one that the police started with, that Maura committed suicide. Although her family has said she had no reason to commit suicide, she was very much struggling with a lot of things, including the arrest, problems with her boyfriend, crashing her dad's car. There is also the amount of sleeping pills and alcohol found in the car. Which
I see where the police are coming from, but also just because somebody's going through a lot, just because somebody might have sleeping pills or drinks doesn't mean they're suicidal.
The problem I have with this theory is, wouldn't they have found her body?
That too.
She couldn't have gotten too far from the car.
Yeah.
On foot. And if she crashed the car and then committed suicide, I feel like they would have found something.
Eventually they would have had to.
The second theory is that she ran away from the car to avoid getting in trouble. And it was super cold out that night. So some people think she ran from the car to avoid getting in trouble and ended up dying of exposure.
But again, where's the body?
That's exactly what I said. My issue with this is, wouldn't someone have found the body? They sent the cadaver dogs out.
Yeah.
Into the woods. I know you can't search all of the woods, but they've done multiple searches, and I just feel that they'd find it. And I also feel they would have found footprints in the snow.
They had to have.
Another theory that a lot of people believe, including James Renner, who wrote True Crime Addict. And I don't reference his book a lot because I have a lot of feelings about James Renner that we can get into. But this is his biggest, strongest theory. People believe that she started a new life for herself in Canada. There were multiple sightings of Maura in Canada. We all know she was in trouble and she had to get out of it. I don't know that I believe this theory, but there are some things that point to it. If she did, there is some people that believe her dad helped her. Her dad did come visit just days before. He pulled out $4,000 and did not use it on a car. Did he give it to Maura to help her start a new life? However, how'd she get there if the car crashed? Was someone who was going to help her following her and she jumped in that car? Did she hitchhike?
Sorry, I'm like silent because I'm thinking, but I don't know if I'm crazy about any of these theories right now, just because, again, this day and age, I feel like she would have to be found at some point. There's just something still isn't adding up for me.
Although Renner does believe the theory that she's in Canada living a happy life, he does not believe that her dad helped her. He's convinced that she was riding with someone in tandem with a friend. He says a woman at a grocery store in Haverhill thinks that she saw Maura with two girls about a half hour before the crash and they were buying liquor. In the Oxygen series, they interview a police officer who pulled the tapes from this grocery store and Maura was never there
Never
at the grocery store.
with the two girls.
That James Renner is convinced happened.
Okay, so if there's no proof though.
This is also where he brings up the witness Faith, the first phone call in. She said she saw a man smoking a cigarette on the scene.
Ooh.
Later, Faith said she never said it was a man. Fred came out and was like, Maura did not smoke, which maybe she didn't, but also if I was smoking in college, I wouldn't have told my parents. I was never a smoker, but I would have never told my parents.
My thought exactly. Maybe he doesn't know.
Some people think that the red light that Faith saw that she thought was a cigarette might have been her cell phone charger light
Okay.
from being plugged into the car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when you used to put it in the cigarette lighter and the little light would light up.
Exactly. That makes a little bit of sense.
James Renner's theory includes that she was pregnant and that's why she was running away. She did have the Google search previous to her disappearance. However, it was explained away by her classwork. And his other biggest evidence is that she left her birth control behind in her car. So she wouldn't have needed to take it because she was pregnant.
What a man thing to say.
Yeah, like I literally put, which like I forgot my birth control everywhere when I was in college. So this doesn't seem like an important detail at all to me.
She's in college. If she is trying to get away from this scene, her very first thought isn't, oh, I got to grab my birth control. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
And I mean, I got a freaking IUD now because I can't keep track of my birth control.
And you're a grown woman.
And I'm a grown woman. So he's convinced that she's living life in Canada to get away from her dad and Bill, and that a friend helped her and is continuing to keep the secret for her.
Where's the baby?
This is why I have feelings about James Renner. There's a couple other reasons that I'm not going to get into too much. You can read the book or listen to some of his stuff to find out yourself, because I'm not going to spread rumors about people that have no backing.
Good for you.
Maura's family's theory is that she was abducted by someone while waiting for the police.
Honestly, that's what I'm leaning most towards myself right now.
This is 100% possible. The evidence suggests that she got into a car. The police dogs tracked her to a spot where she would have gotten into a car.
Yes.
Did someone grab her? She didn't accept help from Bill Atwood. But honestly, if you look up a picture of Bill Atwood, he's a little bit just a little scary, maybe. And he wasn't a giant school bus. So did somebody less threatening come by and she accepted help? Did Atwood grab her?
How far away is she from, you said an hour?
From where?
From her college, from where she was at.
Like 3 hours.
Oh, so it's not, the likelihood of her running into somebody she knows randomly is not likely.
No.
Okay.
There's also theories that Butch Atwood, the bus driver, was involved. He was the last person to see her alive. The Atwoods did move to Florida shortly after this incident, and he also changed his statement to police multiple times.
That's a little fishy. I just looked up a picture of him. I think it's the mustache that makes him.
It is the mustache.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he was a scary man at all. I'm just saying I probably wouldn't have accepted help from that man as a woman alone.
A young college girl. He looks intimidating.
Yeah. So maybe someone less intimidating came by and she was like, oh, yeah, I'll let you help me. Anyway, Butch did end up passing away in the time since.
Ooh.
So now we're going to get a little bit into the town rumors, because the people in town also believe that she was abducted.
Really?
There are some rumors around town that some younger men who worked at a ski lodge about 20 miles away from the city, or this village she's in, it's not really a city, picked her up and took her to a party where she ended up overdosing and dying.
No, I hate that. I hate that.
There's also a rumor that two brothers living in an A-frame house 1 mile from the crash scene were involved. One of the brothers actually called Fred Murray and said he thought his brother was involved.
What? He called the dad?
He found a bloody knife and gave it to Fred Murray.
Okay. To which I say, good job, you're calling the dad, you're saying something, but why aren't we calling the police in that situation?
I don't know. Fred Murray sent the knife to police. No one has said whether it has been tested and what the results are from that.
Oh, that's infuriating.
The new owners of the A-frame house also allowed a search of the house where samples were taken from, but again, the information for that testing has not been released.
And I'm sorry for a brother to say that about his brother. A, they have bad blood and he's trying to get his brother into some trouble. Or B, there's got to be some reason he thinks that. My goodness
Yes.
gracious.
Yes. The only thing that makes the abduction thing hard for me to believe is the window of time is so small that she was alone.
Which is so
To
true.
me, what are the odds that someone nefarious drove through in the 7 minutes that she was alone? But it's completely possible.
It is. If like I hate to say right place, right timing, because wrong place, wrong timing. But for the ding dong who does it, oh, I don't know. This is
We
stressing me
still
out.
have some more theories to get
Oh
into.
my God, I'm gonna get gray hair.
Like I said, it's mostly theories at this point. Some people believe that Bill Rausch was somehow involved. Now,
The boyfriend.
yes, he was in Oklahoma the night of the disappearance, but in the time since, he's been accused of sexual misconduct against multiple women. Now, not saying that being a disgusting, gross rapist makes you a murderer or involved in your girlfriend's murder, but he's gross no matter what.
Well, it shows a lot about his character, and then it makes you think, oh wow, if he's doing that, ooh, messy,
Yes.
messy.
So another theory is that she was headed to a UMass cabin that students had access to in the mountains. So were other people following her? Was she going to a party up in the cabin? Is that how she got picked up? But then what happened after this? There's not a lot of information on this cabin at all. The only place I've ever really heard it talked about was the Missing Maura Murray podcast that Tim and Lance did. I tried like Googling information on it, and there's like literally none. So I don't know how I feel about this.
Like, who's Kevin? Who was there? How do you get it? Do you rent it out? Like, too many questions with that one.
Yes. Another theory is that Maura's dad, Fred, was involved in her disappearance and not in like a he helped her get to Canada way.
Like in a bad way.
However, this is where I'm not really going to go into it. Look it up for yourself. But all of this is based on rumors that James Renner has started with no backing.
I was gonna even say, like, based on the evidence and the facts, I don't really lean towards that one either, because I feel like if that was the case, so like there would be someone saying, "Oh, there was 4 kids, there was a wife," like there would be more agency to that. But I could be wrong. But I don't lean. I don't think I agree with that one.
And then our last theory is that the police are involved.
Dun dun dun.
People think that the investigation was botched and that the police aren't sharing enough information because it's all a police cover up. The biggest backbone to this theory is that a witness saw a police SUV marked 001 that was nose to nose with Mara's car. When that witness drove by, she does not remember seeing any people.
Hmm.
She believes that she saw this car based on Maura went missing in a dead spot. This woman on her way home from work drove through the dead spot and then called her significant other to say, "Hey, I'm on my way home." Based on the time that she made that call out of the dead spot, she believes that she saw this around 7:40, which was before the police actually got there.
I was going to say that fits into the timeline as well.
There is no report of this police car ever being at the crash site. And the police chief, Jeff Williams, is the one that people believe would have been driving it. And
Ooh.
there was no report that the police chief was ever there. She did report this to police, and she says the police called her back and were like, "Are you sure it was 001?" However, in the Oxygen series that I watched, they interviewed the responding officer on the scene, and he said that cruisers were not assigned, and he was actually driving 001 that night. Was this witness just not sure on the time? Did she really drive by at 7:46 when the police were already there and just had her times a little messed up?
Which I think with the police going on and saying, "Hey, that was my car," and they weren't assigned. If that's true, if that's a valid, true thing this officer is saying, that makes a little bit sense that she probably messed the time up. This police officer could be lying, but I'm hoping he's telling the truth and maybe she just got her time wrong.
Yes. And I think, I mean, witness statements are great, but we always have to take them with a grain of salt because people don't always remember things correctly or think of other things.
Yeah, and something could happen and two people are there and see it a little bit different. So it's not 100% valid.
So those are the theories. Do you lean one way or another?
Oh, this is so hard for me. I feel like, first off, great job because I'm stumped and I can see why this hasn't been solved. It's so interesting. And you're right, there's so much to it that doesn't make any sense. And it's just horrible. But if I had to pick one, like had to, I would say maybe the abduction one, either the boys at the ski lodge or the brother. But I feel like since the knife didn't really pan out, I lean a little bit more towards ski lodge boys.
Well, we don't know that the knife didn't pan out. We don't
You're
know that
right.
it's ever been tested or that anything's been released from it.
You're right. So if I had to put my money in, I would say one of those. Which one do you? I'm curious.
So I think before watching the Oxygen series, I literally didn't lean one way or another.
It's so
I
hard.
think after watching the Oxygen series, I probably lean more towards an abduction.
That's
I
where I'm
just still
at.
have my doubts again because it's such a small amount of time. And if she didn't accept help from Butch Atwood, why would she accept help from somebody else? And I just feel that if there was a struggle, like them trying to get her in the car, one of the people who called the police probably would have seen it. Faith watched out her window, not the whole time, but waited for police. And Butch said he did too. And obviously, their eyes weren't on her the whole time. They just kind of checked back and forth to see if police were there. But I feel like it had to be fast, whatever happened. It
If
had to
it
be
was
fast.
so fast. It was like, oh, you need a ride? All right, hop in. Like it had to have been something like that. And you're right. If she didn't do it with Butch, what would make her do it with someone else? But I feel like also, even if it was like the two friends you said she was seeing with two other girls, it's been a decent amount of time. Something would have came out. Things always come out. That's
It's
why
been 20 years this year.
20 years.
It happened in 2004.
Oh my gosh. First off, I didn't even realize that. I'm like, oh, that's 10 years ago, 20 years. So what the crap happened? Nothing in 20 years?
No, I didn't really get into it, but they've had tips since and they've done searches since. And the reason I didn't really get into it is nothing's ever come of it. Personally, disappearances are so interesting to me because I feel like it is so hard to up and disappear without a trace, but it happens all the time.
Which is so terrifying because that's exactly what happened. Yeah, she took some things with her, but there's no footsteps, there's no trace. There's sightings, quote unquote. But again, people are, oh, that looks like that girl, like
And
what
I
could have
think
happened?
the biggest detriment to this case is that Maura didn't tell anybody where she was going or why.
You
And
are
I
so right.
think if we would have known that, if we would have known where and why, we could have more ideas for motive.
It wouldn't be as questioning, which is why everybody at least tell one person. If you need to get away for a little bit, tell one person. If you don't want anyone else to know, hey, I'm going here. This is almost, I feel like at the tip, it's solvable. This is a solvable case. And
It is.
oh,
Yeah.
I
And
hate
like,
this.
I do understand maybe if she was originally going out there to commit suicide, maybe that's why she didn't tell anybody. But I don't think that's how this case ended, even if that's how it started.
Agreed.
And I think anybody who is struggling with any thoughts of harming themselves or suicidal thoughts, like it is okay to get help. It's okay to not be okay. We can link some resources in the show notes.
We definitely will.
But like you said, like if you are going to go anywhere by yourself, tell one person.
Just one. Oh, I don't know. Just sad. Honestly, it's sad that it's not solved yet. I feel bad for her family. I feel bad for her loved ones, her friends, that this has to be so frustrating.
Yes. And unfortunately, Maura's mom was struggling with cancer and she has died since. So she
Oh,
died never knowing what happened to her daughter.
which I'm sure weighed so heavy on her as the mother. And I'm sure on her siblings and her dad. And if you have any information on this too, if by any chance you're listening to this and you saw something, definitely call the police. What town is it again?
Haverhill, New Hampshire.
Haverhill, New Hampshire. If you were there February 9th.
And also, like, if you knew Maura at that time, if you had any interactions with her, any little bit of information could help gain some insight into what was happening in her life and why she went up there in the first place. Whether it was by herself, whether there were people in tandem, whether this was an abduction, I think any little bit of information helps.
Agreed, 100%. Ugh. Tragic case. I hate unsolved cases, but you made me into it and liked it, and I'm hope that it gets solved. And kudos to you because that very good job. First case, you did it.
Yay! I was
know,
very nervous. I think next time I'll be more comfortable.
That's how I felt after my first one. And then I guess Lex and I decided before we get jumped on the Zoom that we talked about our book at the end of the last podcast. And we're going to post them on the gram. And if you want to join our little book club, we can talk about it a little bit here and there, but we'll post our ratings, what book we're reading that month. And we're almost done with the Into the Peaks book.
Oh, I have just like such a little amount left.
I have like probably 75 pages, but I'm intrigued right now. I'll tell you that, everybody. I'm flipping through the pages.
And I think we talked about last time, but if we didn't, we did not know going in that Into the Peaks was actually a sequel to another book. But I am far along enough to know that like you can read this as a standalone and it makes sense and you'll understand it. But if you don't want to read it as a standalone, go get the first one.
Heck yeah.
I think it's called Into the Pines.
Yes. And happy late Halloween. And by the time this comes out, it's November. So happy November.
Yay.
Check out our gram for the book that we'll be doing in November. And give us a follow on the Instagram, please. Bloodshed Baddies is the handle.
You can also send us an email with any case suggestions or stories of your own to bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com.
Or even any comments you had. I forgot to say this in the beginning real quick. I know we're at the end, but I had a friend who messaged me on Instagram after listening to our podcast, and she's a baddie doctor. And she said that it's actually on their board, that case, because of the law that changed, that she had to study that case for her doctor board.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Isn't that awesome? So even if a little comment like that, send us an email. We want to read it. Give us a review, hit the follow button. I forgot to say that last time. Follow our podcast, please. Don't forget to listen to Cousin Vinny, the creator of our awesome intro music, and to tell a friend. We're trying to get out there and do this all the time because we're having fun doing it. We like it. And we're getting better and better, hopefully, right?
Yeah, one day we'll be like really good, like professionals. But right now, if you're sticking with us from like the OG times, one day you'll look back and be like, yeah, I listened to them when they were nervous to talk about their cases.
Yes, give us some time. We'll get more comfortable. We promise. Might be a little bit less awkward, but we are awkward people. So no promises.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.